Raise your right hand. Come right in. This will be the truth, the whole truth, and good evening, everybody. I'm Scott Pickup. So I've been here now since January, which doesn't seem like that long, but in 6 months, there's quite a few things that happen in any new job. So certainly here to answer any questions and concerns. And it was a little tough coming in January because the budget's already done for the year. So you sort of come in at the tail end of a really long process, right? A lot of people work really hard on the budget all year round. So you sort of walk in January and then you got to present that in March. Luckily, everybody was supportive and helpful. Jeff Movis was very, very skilled in finance, which was very helpful. So he did a great job sort of walking me through all the pieces of the budget. So I didn't completely embarrass myself at town meeting and sort of jumped in. That's all you can do in these jobs. You really don't have any warm-up period. There's no, get to know or whatever. The last job when I was in Bellows Falls and Rockingham, I started in October of 2020, so right in the middle of the pandemic, as you guys can imagine. That was a lot of fun. So that was a much more difficult transition than this one. At least we could have people in a room like this. We could have conversations. We weren't handing mail through door slots at the town hall because everybody was afraid they were going to get the COVID-19 virus. So anyway, so the transition's been great. Not because there's two members of the board here, but just let me say, first of all, the board here is very good. They're great to work with. They're very open. They're very honest with me. They give me clear direction as to things that they're looking to accomplish, things that they want to do. In this job, that's the best. The best boards are the ones that are clear and concise and just give you direction as to things that they really want. And this board has been outstanding in that respect. And quite frankly, that makes my job a hell of a lot easier. It's not always the case. I realize, right, we have individuals, everybody has opinions, but they work real hard to try to come to consensus and figure out the best way forward for the community. So that's been, quite frankly, enjoyable working with these folks. They really are outstanding public servants. So that's made this transition a heck of a lot easier on me. So here I am. So lots of folks are here. Be happy to answer any questions, any information you guys want to share, things you're concerned about. The floor is open, so it's an open exchange. Yes?
Okay, Shara Osterland. I don't know if this question, it's not disrespectful. I don't know if it's appropriate because, anyway, I live on Summer Street and it was repaved. It was a mess. I renewed it. It was repaved and it was beautiful. I thank the town for that. I'm very appreciative. I walk my dog every day up one side of Summer Street, so I get to look at things. And my question is, or some of the paving, like when you get to the driveway, sometimes there's about an inch difference. Sometimes it's flush. There's debris that's on the sidewalk that wasn't there before, like the little pebbles. I don't know the terminology for it. Sometimes there are chunks of it. So the sidewalks, I'm afraid that that gets washed into the sewers. That's not good. So I'm wondering, you have a clerk of the works that checks these jobs for quality control, and maybe it's done perfectly, maybe they can't get it perfectly, and it's as good as it'll ever get. But I'm just kind of
We do have an engineer who normally comes out on the jobs. We also have our own guys checking quantities because when you're doing paving projects, you're paying for quantities of asphalt. So we want to make sure that we're getting the right quantities, we're paying for the right amounts. And they do come out and then they check elevations and grades. So there are times when it's not exactly to the grade, but a lot of times people come out and ask us to do different things to help with drainage. Because sometimes water sits at the bottom of their driveways. So they've asked us to create some lower spots where the water can run, try to get to catch basins. So even though it looks like it might not be complete, in a lot of cases, individuals will just come out and say, hey, at the end of my driveway, I always have a puddle. It drives me crazy in the winter, it ices up, and you help the water.
Yeah, my answer, it looks like it could be really pried off or come off really easily and be a waste of money.
Well, once we pave, the next thing we do, we come behind it and chip seal it, so it'll help seal the top of it. So we haven't finished chip sealing yet this year. We have more paving to do later in August, so there'll be more work to be done. But yeah, paving is not an exact science. You try to do, especially when you're in an urban area, because you got all these catch bait, just stuff in the road makes it hard to pave to a perfect surface. But we can always take a look at it and see if there's issues. Most of the time, what I get is people, when it's paved flat, they get upset because the water doesn't run, the way it used to, and then they end up with puddles and ice. Yes, sir.
I'm Chuck Gregory. I live on Mineral Street. I ask you not to repave it because it has character. I like it the way it is. Now, no question. There seems to have been a private party that has installed a surveillance camera or two on a public pole downtown here near the bus stop. I just wondered if you could give us any details on it.
I checked with the PD because there aren't any cameras that are for any monitoring or observation. We do have some that are in like the park and ride and other places that are monitored at PD. That's not one that is monitored. And my understanding is there are some cameras that DOT puts in that monitor traffic. And it might be one of the ones that DOT put in.
Okay,
So I'll double check on that.
Okay, so people don't have to get town approval to mount their own surveillance cameras on town property?
Depends, again, we don't own the poles. The poles are owned by utility companies. So if they get a pole attachment agreement, they can attach something to it.
So this would be Green Mountain Power?
No, more than likely it's DOT. It's for transportation, more than likely DOT.
Oh, okay, I'll check with them.
Yep. Yep, but it's nothing, I checked with the PD, there was nothing that we put up. Because sometimes we do put them up for observation, other reasons, but not there. Yes, sir.
I'm Dick Andrews. I walked down here this evening from up by Union Street, and since we're talking about minor imperfections in the streets, when I walked by the building, the left side of Mineral Street as you head towards State Office Building, some stones have fallen off the building, landed on the sidewalk and shattered, and I thought, that's a little unnerving. So, you might want to look at that.
We'll take a look at that for sure. No, that's for sure, we'll take a look. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I was going to follow up on that. It was going to be my question. I happened to walk up there this afternoon, and where the hydroelectric plant is, I think that's probably the building we're talking about. That just within the last couple of days, there are chunks. It looks like they're falling off from the window. So they may have to, the concrete window,
The lentils.
of the window.
Right.
That's where it seems to be coming from. You look closely, you'll see where chunks of concrete have fallen out earlier. And then you can see them on the sidewalk. They're about that big. If somebody were to get hit in the head with that, that wouldn't be funny.
Oh, that's not a good thing.
It's very recent. I'd say within the last couple of days, even that.
Okay.
The rain would be loosening some of that up.
What is the rain?
The rain would be loosening some of that up.
Well, if you've been to town hall recently, you noticed that the hillside behind our building is sliding.
Yeah.
So, one of the joys of Springfield is we're a city of hills. And every hill
Yes.
needs to be held back somehow. And ours isn't holding back so well at the moment. So we need to spend some money to stabilize that. Yes, sir.
I'm wondering, is the town been able to recruit the kind of amount and quality of help that you need and look for?
We're struggling with public works, guys that have CDLs, because we don't pay competitive wage. I can drive an oil truck and make $15 or $20 an hour more than driving for me. So that's a struggle, and we can't pay the same competitive wage for guys that work in those industries. In police and fire, we're doing pretty well. The problem is it's expensive. Running a police and fire department, as you guys know, isn't cheap. And the cost of police officers, I think we're not the most expensive department, but we're not, we're somewhat in the middle. But the cost of public employment is going to become a bigger and bigger challenge. We're all stressed about affordability. The board's taken on a pretty large infrastructure project doing water and sewer replacements. You guys all voted as taxpayers. Multi-millions in bonds. And Springfield's an older city. You've got to replace the infrastructure. It's not terribly exciting. It's not new buildings. It's not economic development. But if the water and sewer doesn't work, the town's not functioning. So those are appreciated We try to leverage everything we do on these major projects with state funds, either revolving loan funds from the state, or in this case, we also are getting lead subsidy funds as well from the federal government. So each time we try to go out to you guys with a bond, we try to leverage other money. So it's not just our taxpayers that are trying to take this burden on. Running a community of this size is not cheap. And we have full services here, right? We run an ambulance, we run a fire department, we run a police department, we have recreation. So it's a challenge. Some of our neighbors, and you guys have seen, I'm sure you've seen some of these things, are offering sign-on bonuses for police officers. Some are up to $20,000 to hire a police officer. We don't have the resources to be able to pay those kinds of recruiting bonuses. So it's a little more of a challenge to find people that can work within our within our pay ranges. We pay well, we have good benefits, it's a good place to work, but the marketplace is really competitive. There are some places that are paying substantially more than what we're paying.
So do we have any advantages going for us?
I think the best advantage we have right now in all of these departments is we have damn good department heads. Our police chief is outstanding. And if you want to be a police officer and learn and be able to provide high quality public safety services, I'd go work for Paul Stagner in the fire department. I'd go work for Jeff Burnham in the police department. Ben Moffitt, who's running our public works, is outstanding. Those people make a difference in terms of teaching people how to be a good public employee. They're excellent people. They've got great skills. That's our only superpower. I can't pay you more. I can't give you other benefits. I can't give you a bonus at the end of the year if you're a high performer. We have union contracts. Unfortunately, there are things I just can't do. But the department heads and the people that do that run those departments, that's our superpower. And I'm damn glad they're here. Yes.
Carl Reed from Fairground Road. We've got a potential building project coming up, and I found out too long ago that since Chuck Wise left, we don't have a zoning officer. Any hope for replacing him?
We've got a couple of irons still in the fire. That's another challenge, right? We're trying to find these professionals. We made 2 offers for 2 different people, and they both ended up with jobs in other communities that pay substantially more than what we can pay. So we have a couple more options. We're doing some stuff internally, so we're still processing. Still processing applications and all that. But yeah, it's been a struggle trying to find somebody to replace Chuck. So, but we'll get there.
I can go back to the landsliding project.
Yeah.
The stop sign at the intersection of 106 and 11.
Okay.
There's a really ugly retaining wall straight ahead when you stop waiting for light.
Yeah.
Is there some story behind that? Is there some hope?
Well, it's
for
failing. That's part of the story. And it is ugly as hell.
Yeah.
So.
And, I mean,
we've got a list of projects. The board, we've got 35 different capital projects that we're trying to work through.
Mm-hmm.
That the board has either authorized us to go after grant funding, bond funding, or other types of funding. Like we put some money in reserves. But that's one of the ones that we're trying to work on as well. But you can see where it's failing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just not a pretty thing when you're doing that when you're coming through.
And each of those, just to give you guys some, you realize how the area behind the parking lot in Town Hall is not huge, right? And I think we talked at the meeting last night that we're going to replace up on Wall Street, I don't know, roughly 75 feet or so. We're going to have to do reinforcement and some other work. It's going to be $300,000 plus to do the work. So none of these things are cheap.
Yeah.
So when I think about a wall like that, I just start thinking 300, 400, 500. It's just, it has to get done, but it's just, it adds up quickly.
Money.
It adds up real quickly. Yeah, it's tough.
Is that a threat of letting loose on its own? To where it
We've had
becomes an
engineers
emergency
come out and look
take care
at
of
it. It's stable enough to where they don't feel that it's an imminent danger, but it's certainly, it's substandard and it's starting to fail. You can see places where it's taking through and materials are starting to come out. So, yeah, these things are unfortunate.
It's going to fail at the worst time too. So
Well, you know, we've dodged some bullets already this year, right? We've had neighbors flood around us, we haven't had any flooding this year, thank God, we'll knock on wood for that.
Mm.
You know, we had a nice storm the other day and a little microburst came through, decided to go to Weathersfield as opposed to Springfield, so I guess so far so good. But eventually those things are gonna hit us too. Yes, sir.
We talked about the sewer and the water, redoing it. The intersection of 143 and Cherry Hill, that triangle where the manholes are subsiding. Is there talk of restructuring the intersection itself when it's in the interest of only tearing it up once?
Yep. We've looked at a couple of different options. I'm not sure that one we've got a full design on yet to do a redesign on that. But I think we'll have to look at that one. You know, the engineers will come up with some designs. The real challenge with any of that is right of way. Anything that we do, we want to try to keep it in the existing right of way. Because we have to go outside of the right of way. I got to go around for, you know, we got to get easements, and it's a long process to get all that. So we'll definitely take a look at that one. We can make some improvements. But again, you know, we appreciate, we went in this year's town meeting where we asked for an extra $1 million. The voters approved that as an article for paving. And $1 million, you would think, oh my God, we would do half the town. This is great. It just doesn't. The cost of asphalt's $95, almost $100 a ton, and it just doesn't go very far.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we would try to reconstruct roads, because some people came up and were upset about, you know, some roads are in tough shape. We're not disputing anybody's, you know, got concerns, but rebuilding a road can be 3 times that amount. You know, to put in a new base, tear off the old, and then put out a new travel surface. So we have years and years of deferred maintenance, and that's why we're going as hard as we can for grants. Because our taxpayer dollars, we're trying to stretch them as far as we can stretch. We've got this plan, this pavement management plan. We've gone out, we've looked at all the asphalt, the board has seen it. We try to knock off chunks of it every year. And the big problem is when we do these reconstructions as opposed to repaving, you just don't get that much area done. So people are like, well, where'd the money go? You'd be like, well, see that half-mile stretch? That's where it went.
Mm-hmm.
So it's tough. That's a challenge. But we'll keep looking at all of them, try to get as many as we can. Yes?
This is a public safety and substance use disorder question. How do you view recovery-oriented approaches alongside traditional public safety efforts?
Well, again, I think our department is one of the leaders in terms of how that approach is working. Even last night, our chief approached the board about taking some opioid funds and doing some additional outreach through prison systems, since a lot of these folks are ending up in our town eventually. So he's taken a very proactive approach to Project Action, some other types of services. Our biggest challenge, to be blunt, is we have people that are living in conditions that they could easily have. We've offered them multiple times, multiple services, but they have to have some effort of being sober, and they just simply don't want to. They want to live a different lifestyle. And when they make those choices, it's very difficult for me to offer them true types of recovery types of services. So we keep trying, and we've gotten more aggressive. I think the board has taken a pretty strong position at some of these locations, which are impacting some neighborhoods, where we know there's activity, there's problems. We are aggressively addressing those, and when we can, we're taking ownership of those, like we did at 78 Valley Street. And then we're ultimately going to make sure that whatever happens there, we're going to probably tear down the existing structure. At some point, it will not be a problem going forward. And we're doing that at 10 and 12 Central, we're doing that at other locations. And I think that's been, the board's position is that, unfortunately, the impacts on the neighborhood are greater than the empathy for the people that are in these conditions. And we're doing the best we can, trying to offer them as much as we can. But if they don't want to comply with the requirements of the services that are being offered to them, I think the choice is that we can't continue to allow these things to just continue to grow in neighborhoods. They become a huge problem. So,
With the uprise and, the possibility of having more individuals in a homeless situation and still actively using within the town, you know, them going to public places like here, the library, Turning Point, and things like that, but still in active use. What is your take on putting some sort of sharp box in some locations within the town?
I know the library has some challenges in the bathroom here specifically. We've had to clean up from different problems with people using the bathrooms, which is really unfortunate. The needle exchange issues or the sharps issues, I think there are places where that can be done and done appropriately. We're not putting our head in the sand, but I also think that there's also a limit to how much the community is going to tolerate some of these activities in public, right? And I think that's a tough decision. We're talking about at the board level, looking at enacting an encampment policy. Lots of other communities, Millbury has one, Montpelier has one, Burlington has one. And it deals with people that are living in tents or whatever, shelters on public properties that are basically there for long periods of time. And how do we address these problems? Because people call our offices or they call some of our elected officials, they're upset. They're next to Riverside Park and the kids are playing here. And it's not a comfortable situation. They've got all sorts of activities going on in these places. There's lots of places we can take these folks to get services, but they don't want the services. They want to live how they're living. So it puts a lot of pressure on us to come up with a way to treat these consistently and compassionately. So we're working on an encampment policy to try to address some of those issues. And quite frankly, it puts a lot of pressure on the police and on the public works and the folks that have to go and deal with these situations too. A lot of these places are contaminated. I walked through this building the other day just full of needles. And it's just like, these are really unsafe places. Places that are not, should not be in residential neighborhoods for sure. It certainly shouldn't be in other places where you've got parks and kids and dogs and other kinds of activities that just aren't compatible. So we're working on it. We're going to have something. The board's going to consider something. And we're trying to balance those issues and try to come up with a policy that we think is compassionate but also reasonable. So we're working on it.
What are the encampments like in Burlington and Montpelier? Like, what is that? What's the model?
A lot of them have to do with notice, how people are noticed, what options they're given. They are referred to services long before there's any effort to then remove the encampment. But there is a point in time where if they have not moved on, then they will come and they will take the materials out and basically clean up the area.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a challenge because it's uncomfortable. A lot of people are upset by it.
Sure.
But I think we have to make some effort to be consistent about it.
Mm-hmm.
And in some cases, like I said, they've got fires going. There's just lots of activities that just aren't appropriate when you're thinking about the places that some of these things are occurring. So it's a challenge. Yes, sir.
The governor has charged Springfield with finding affordable homes for 531 families earning between $50,000 and $200,000. A housing commission met, gave a report. I wondered what the town's next steps will be.
Well, we're trying to do some development in conjunction with the Springfield Housing Authority. So they've got one project that we're working on over at South Ridge. It's about 20 units. There is an affordable component within that, but most of it is middle market type housing, and there are condominiums. There's a couple other locations we're looking at potentially for housing expansion. The one thing that we do have here is we have lots of water and sewer. So a lot of communities don't have that luxury, right? So they're limited to how much housing they can provide. Mm-hmm. I think our challenge is to find appropriate locations where we can do, we'd love to have more market rate, but we certainly can do middle income. The one that we're talking about in South Ridge, part of the requirements that they're talking about would be offering teachers and other school district employees an opportunity to purchase one of these before they go out to general public. So I think we're trying to support some of those folks as well. But the cost of housing right now, I think the last number I saw from the Vermont Housing Finance Authority folks was about $460,000 a unit. And that's considered affordable. So when you start adding the numbers up, most people can't afford that, right, on a reasonable salary in Vermont. That's just not reasonable.
Well, I did talk to a loan officer from Vermont Bank who said that a family that was earning $50,000 a year at present interest rates could afford a mortgage with a 20% down payment and present interest rate, principal, interest, and taxes would be $1,100 a month for a $320,000 home.
Okay.
And average price of sale in Springfield over the last 2 years was $159,000. So it would seem that in Springfield, the price of the home is not the obstacle. It's actually the down payment for somebody who's making.
Well, I think that's part of the problem. The other problem is the age of our housing stock, right? We have not really had an abundance of new housing, plus some of the housing that is available at those prices are probably houses you're going to put a lot of equity, sweat equity into to get them up to speed.
I'm sort of familiar with the aging housing problem.
Yeah,
So,
I know.
and I think there are probably
We've all bought one and done it.
there are a lot of young people out there who would jump at the chance to get an aging house in Springfield.
Yeah.
So you can.
Well, COVID, I think, let's be honest, COVID really changed our entire market here in southern Vermont, right? That house that was $159,000, pre-COVID was what, 115, 110? I mean, I think that's the biggest challenge, is COVID just distorted our market. And it really hasn't changed much since, to be honest with you. Yes, sir.
Yeah, a lot of people in town walk because they don't have cars. And a lot of sidewalks are obstructed. People park on the sidewalk, they put dumpsters on the sidewalk, there's trees and bushes and hedges growing over the sidewalk. And it would seem that eliminating those would be easier than, say, rebuilding sidewalks. Is there any systematic effort to keep sidewalks free of obstructions?
A lot of that requires code enforcement, right? So I gotta get somebody, a lot of that requires code enforcement. I gotta get somebody to go out and actually do that. So I'd love to get a zoning person in place and then get somebody in the summertime to go out and just do specific code enforcement.
But for parking on the sidewalk, you don't need code enforcement, do you?
Typically, I can get the police to go out and kind of do that periodically. You know, they can issue tickets for obstructing the sidewalk. So we can focus on that. So sidewalks are an issue. You know, the board, again, we came to the voters and asked for additional money for sidewalks. We're farther behind on sidewalk maintenance than we are on streets. And you would think $100,000 worth of sidewalk, we're gonna get a lot of sidewalks done. It just, the money doesn't, you know, the cost per square foot just doesn't add up to catching up anytime soon.
It just seems to me that a woman pushing a baby carriage should not have to push it in the street because somebody's put their car on the sidewalk.
Yep.
They think the car belongs there and the baby carriage belongs in the street.
Yeah, I don't disagree. That's something we can definitely focus on. I mean, these are all quality of life issues, and I don't disagree with any of them. Right? I think they're all important as to what we're trying to do.
Solve the
You want to be our code enforcement? That's right. Got a job for you. That's funny. Projects, anything else you guys want to ask about? Other projects that we're working on? Usually everybody asks us, what are we doing about brownfields? What are we doing for economic development? So the real challenge for us for affordability, right? We have $650 million roughly of property in our grant list. If we want to reduce taxes and maintain services, the only way we can do it is to increase our grant list. That's it. Otherwise, the other option is cut services, which I don't think most folks here want to see happen. So one of the challenges we're trying to come up with is ways to grow that grant list. Most of our projects that we're working on have brownfields because of the nature of the manufacturing history of what was done. And it's not just in Springfield, it's all through the valley. So those projects take a lot of time, take a tremendous amount of money, because the cleanups are incredibly expensive. But we do have some natural advantages a lot of other places don't have, right? We have an exit off of 91. We do have large plots once we can get some of these, like J&L and some of these other places cleaned up, that are available for, small scale manufacturing. The state just deeded over to us, the town, another 23 acres up next to the prison, that we're looking to do another potential industrial park. So you would go up the Prison Drive, off to the left would be the town-owned land, it'd be another 23 acres, and the prison obviously is on the other side. So there are some options for us here to try to expand the Grand List. There are some companies in town that are growing, and they're taking up more spaces in the industrial park out in North Springfield, so that's beneficial. But the idea that we're going to have a magic bullet where somebody's going to come into town and bring 2,500 jobs and build a $100 million facility probably isn't realistic for Southern Vermont. So these are going to be, we're going to focus on smaller scale versus those kind of home runs. They're just not going to be available for us. But there's some things in the works, and we're hoping to get some positive growth in that Grand List so that homeowners can hopefully see some relief, because otherwise everybody feels the pinch every year when we do taxes. And we have we have a huge list of priorities. As I said, I got a capital project list of 35 different projects. And to be honest with you, we couldn't afford to do all those projects. We price everybody out of town if we did all of them. Just the cost is overwhelming. So we try to get the ones we can get grants for, and the ones that are the most critical, try to focus on things that we know we can get done, and leverage as much money as we can, so that we're trying to provide some relief to the taxpayers. What happens with schools and consolidation and all that, and education, that's a whole other piece of the same pie. It still comes out of the same taxpayer pockets, doesn't it? But that's a different conversation, and that's a much harder conversation, to be honest with you, than what we're dealing with. Yes.
Has Springfield lost a lot of federal money with our current administration?
They've cut back on some things, like they're not real supportive of energy efficiency or green, whatever you want to call green type of infrastructure. But surprisingly, they have not cut back on some of the primary grants that we go after. Mm-hmm. So those are still available. How long are they going to be available? I don't know. So we're trying to push as hard as we can. I can tell you where we are hurting as a state is trying to match the federal dollars for state highway transportation projects. We don't have enough money coming into the state from gas tax, from other sources. So I think this year, and Chrissy, you can tell me if I'm wrong, I think we had to give back like almost $100 million worth of federal money because we couldn't match it with state funds. And so there's a real dichotomy there. I was at a joint transportation committee meeting earlier in March, and we were advocating for more support to try to build up the state transportation fund. And they were saying at this point in time, I think there's 18 bridges currently in Vermont that are closed, permanently closed, with no idea how they're going to fund them. Another 17 that are restricted and will eventually be closed. And that's just tells you the kind of pressure that's building on the transportation fund. We have a huge project going on that's going to start down at Exit 7 down here. Mm-hmm. I think there's 3 bridges that the state's going to replace. All the on-ramps and off-ramps are going to be redone. One of the state engineers gave us a presentation last night on their thoughts on the Tunerville Trail and how that's going to be impacted. It was really, I don't think it was well received, let's put it that way. It wasn't the best design I've ever seen, so I think we have to work with the state a little bit on that project. They were discussing about possibly putting on ramps, putting at-grade crossings for bikes and pedestrians. It just didn't make any sense to anybody on the board, and so I think we have to do a little work with the state. Mm-hmm. But that's coming in 27. That project is going to supposedly start in 2027. And they're going to be doing construction out there all the way up through 2031. Because bridges, and it's just going to be a huge project to do all this work. So
Will that interchange be open too? with
it will
these?
continue to be open. There's gonna be restrictions and it's just gonna be a lot. And like I said, we weren't overly impressed, I think, with the presentation last night from the transportation engineer. So some work has to get done.
That is primarily state and federal money and not Springfield money.
It is not Springfield money, right?
Good.
But it impacts us obviously, so we have a real concern about how that's gonna get done. Yes, sir.
How does that timeline fit in with the Charlestown Bridge and the Clinton Street approach?
Charlestown Bridge at this point has it's on the transportation improvement plan for New Hampshire, and there is no funding allocated currently. And they do those tips, they're called tips, you know, they get their acronym, sure, you got the federal thing to do. So that's every 5 years they redo the tip. So I would guarantee it's at least 5 years away from any kind of funding. And then a project like that is probably a 3 to 5 year cycle by the time they go through the federal environmental process, design, right away, and then construction.
Mhm.
So I would say you won't see a Charlestown Bridge for 10 years would be probably realistic.
Yeah.
So,
And the Clinton Street approach, would that be overlap on the exit?
no, I think hopefully we're gonna be done, well, our water and sewer work will have all that done over the next 3 years. I don't know how the rest of this is gonna impact us as we go forward on this other state project. So, like I said, we have a lot more work to do. The Tunaville presentation last night was trying not to be obnoxious here. It wasn't great, let's put it that way. So, needs work, we'll figure it out, but certainly needs some work. But yes,
Is there any plan for the town pool? Just sitting there rotting is not a good plan either.
no, it's not, and I think there was some deliberate conversations with the board, and I appreciate what it would take to rebuild that pool is significant dollars, much more than I think we could ever realistically recover from, admission fees and trying to make it reasonable. So I don't see, unless we come up with some serious grant funding, that could ever get redone. What it could do is potentially be made into a field at some point. We could maybe sort of take out what's there and sort of create some other green space or do something, but honestly, I don't see the economics of the pool working at this point at that location. So, and we do have an agreement with Edmund A, and I know that.
The library is closing in 20 minutes.
Oh, no.
Shutting down for 10 minutes. Please be sure to save anything you're working on.
All right.
The library is closing in 20 minutes.
It's automatic, sorry.
Please let us know if you need help finding anything.
That's fabulous.
The computers will be shutting down in 10 minutes.
We should do that in town hall every day. I like that. That would be fantastic. So, yeah, that's a challenge. And quite frankly, Edgar May wants to expand, so they want to do some work out there, which I think has a lot of exciting opportunity. But, we're going to have to partner with them to make it happen. And they're also looking at grants and other things. So I think there's some opportunities to do some things and hopefully make that a nice amenity for the community. So, yes, sir.
Do you see any particular difficulties, really big difficulties in extending the Tunaville Trail from where it is up to Springweather?
Yeah, I do. Because everything, well, first of all, everything that we do with trails has a separate funding source, right? So there's transportation alternative funds within the transportation budget. And that's where we get those funds from, but they're limited. So you're in competition with a lot of other trails around the state of Vermont. And a lot of those unfortunately got wiped out during the storms over the last 3 to 5 years. So a lot of that money has gone into restoration of other trails that, in other counties. And so those funds are a little stretched, but I think we'll be able to, we are on the list to have ours extended. But they haven't really given us solid dates, I think, because again, that fund got severely depleted during these last round of storms, which is something that I think, we talk about what are impacts on the federal government. We talk about, geez, what's happening with grants. The one place that we really have felt some pain is with federal, when we have disaster declarations. This administration has taken a very different approach towards federal intervention in disasters. And there seems to be this discussion on the federal level that it's sort of our problem. Meaning, if there's a flood in Vermont, you guys fix it. It's not our problem at a federal level. So the Vermont Bond Bank has been circulating information to various communities, like you need to start building up emergency funds so that when you have your next disaster, you can tap into these funds. Well, it's great in concept, but as we've already talked about, we have so many unrealized projects. I can't imagine us putting together a $2 to $3 million reserve fund for emergencies. So that's one of those real disconnects that's happening at the federal level. And for a long time, they weren't moving on any of these federal requests. So anything over $100,000, which is not a lot in a disaster declaration, was sitting on the secretary's desk. She would personally approve each of these applications, and there were thousands of them sitting there, and she didn't approve a goddamn one. She didn't approve any of them. So at least now that that person is gone, there's a new person in that chair. Some of these things have actually started to get funded, but that should tell you sometimes how the federal changes can impact us locally. Some communities have been out millions, and they've had to take loans, and they've had to take bond anticipation notes, and they're really struggling because this is critical infrastructure. They got to replace bridges, culverts, buildings. So it's a challenge, and I'm really afraid that if we ever had a real major event again, I'm not sure the federal government's going to step in. And the last couple of storm events that we've had, I think we were in the hundreds of thousands, high hundred thousands of damages, and we've got hazard mitigation grant projects that we're waiting on that are in millions, trying to mitigate some of these so that we don't keep paying for these over and over and over again. But those funds have been slowed down too. So it's frustrating. Yes, sir.
It seems to me that the flood control dams upstream from here have been a huge help to Springfield. Is the federal government responsible for maintaining those? Is that federal?
The one up in North Springfield?
Yeah.
Yes, Army Corps of Engineers.
Yeah, Army Corps. So it's federal money.
And they're gonna have to do some work up there.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. But it's worth it. I mean, that saved our bacon, like when I meet things or that kind of stuff.
If that hadn't been there,
huge,
it would have been a disaster.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But maintaining that is a huge number, and there's gonna have to be some work done on that dam. We're talking with some of the engineers who are working up there. And so far anyway, they've got some money to do that.
Okay.
Keep it in good condition.
Because that'll have a huge impact on us.
Yes.
Yeah.
If that wasn't here, we'd still be cleaning mud out of basements.
Yeah, we would have been in the headlines.
Buildings are even still there because there's huge amounts of water that thing holds back.
Yeah.
So, no, that one is thank goodness it's there.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yep.
Anybody got anything else? Anything on top of mind here? I don't mess around. It's time to go. Well, but even this building, we have a project that's going out to bid here because the roof on this building is leaking. So we're gonna have to go. We put some money away and we try to get some grant funding, but these magnificent old buildings are magnificent, but they're old. And everything we touch needs maintenance. So, that's been a huge problem trying to keep up with all of our facilities. Our public works garage is out of date. Our well field we're concerned about. The federal government keeps changing the regulations on our sewage disposal. We're trying to create a cake product that can be potentially spread as a Class A biosoliid, and the feds keep changing the rules about how you can use Class A biosolids. If you guys read them, I'm sure none of you read about sanitary waste disposal. Okay, who reads that? But Maine has banned it completely, so you can't do land applications. So It's becoming a real challenge. And if you can't do land application in Vermont, the only other options for us is we can truck it, like by train, up to upstate New York. We have one landfill left in the state, in Coventry, and that's it. And after that, I don't know what the answers are. So it's kind of like nuclear waste. At some point, maybe they just start building it up, keeping it on site. I'm not sure. Nobody's really come forward and say, hey, let's figure this one out. We think that there's solutions to the PFOA problem. You can. There are processes involved where it takes it and doesn't create a cake at the end of the process. And it literally burns all the material down into a fine powder. And at that point, there is no PFOA or PFAS in the material, and that can be disposed of pretty easily. But just the preliminary numbers, as we're looking at that, is about $20 million to update our plans. So when we start talking about numbers and what we can do, what we should do, all of those things impact those investment decisions. And it's hard on the board because at some point we got to commit to, we have a 20-year review on the plans. So things have to be updated. And if we do update and go to a process, you have to make sure that the regulatory agencies like DEC or other places will support what we're doing. If not, then we're going to have a heck of a time getting rid of our sludge. And talk about affordability concerns, that's going to be a huge problem. Trucking that stuff up to Coventry is really expensive. And that landfill isn't long for the world either. There's no space to expand. There's no more cells. There's no more capacity. And when that place closes, our next best option is going to be putting it on trains and literally having the train take it upstate to New York, dump it. I think they dump it in the salt mines, I believe, something like that. And that will be incredibly expensive if we have to start disposing of waste that way. So, anyway, that's why you don't read about solid waste at night. You won't be able to sleep. It's a little disturbing. So, but I think if I could say one thing overall, I still think from a quality of life standpoint, I've worked in a lot of places. I've worked in Ohio, I've worked in New York, I've worked in lots of other places. I think Vermont has the highest standard of quality of life of anywhere I've been. Right? We've been incredibly lucky. People before us were incredible stewards of our history. So they've maintained some of our older buildings, some of the character of our communities. They weren't torn down during urban renewal and built up into new sort of, modernistic types of, strip malls and that kind of thing. So there's character in our communities. And I think that's one of the things that people appreciate when they come here, right? We have great natural beauty. We have wonderful small communities. We're challenged a little bit because we're an older state. I think we're the second oldest state in the country. I think only Maine is on average older than Vermont. We need to figure out a way to hold on to our young people because if they don't come back, eventually somebody's got to take care of all of us. We're not all going to live forever. So, we need to make sure that we keep trying to, get some of these folks to come back, and that requires jobs. And good housing, good jobs. The quality of life is here. People. It's just a question of us trying to fill the rest of those gaps. And there's challenges, but I think it's a challenge I think we can meet. And in the long run, I think the future for us, we have clean water, we have clean air, we have a lot of advantages that a lot of other places don't have. So I think, sometimes we don't always look at the bright side of things. We're always looking at the things that are problems. And I think we have a lot more assets than we have things that are negative. So I think if anything, that's the one thing I would take away. Is that, we can build on the things that are positive and we'll fix the things that we need to fix. It's going to take some time. It's going to take a lot of community support. I think the board is appreciative of the times when they do go to the community and ask to support things financially. The community does support them. And that's incredibly helpful for the work we're trying to do. Our job is to try to explain it to you, try to give you guys all the information as to why we think this is the best approach. And hopefully you'll continue to support us as we have, issues that come forward. So that's the best that we can do to help maintain this as a healthy community. So that's the goal. So,
Well, thank you, Scott.
thank you.
Thanks.